Go ahead.
I just want to thank you for coming, and thank you so much for volunteering to do this presentation for us. And if we hope that everyone knows what their benefit package includes, but we know that that's not quite the case. The details are not always known, so this will shed light to that. And thank you so much for volunteering your time to do it. And if anyone is online, if you have questions, you can put them through the chat and we'll answer them at the end. And,
yeah, or even as we go.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
yeah. So I think I know everybody here, but just in case, so I'm Steve Butterfield. I am the chair of the Pension and Benefits Committee, and until yesterday, I was the chair of the Finance Committee, but John Smiley's taking that over now. So I've been dealing with the pension plan around here. I've been on the committee for about 15 or 20 years now. And you can introduce yourself.
Ryan Stanmer, been hopped on, help out on the benefits side of the Benefits and Pension Committee. So kind of report to Stephen, been helping out with that for the last 2-3 years now. And yeah, I'm kind of an intermediate between Monica and Stephen to help from the extended health side of things.
Okay, so hopefully we get technology working for those of you that are on the Zoom, and if it doesn't, send a chat or something, or send an email to Monica. Hopefully this works. Got it on the screen, but doesn't. It's frozen. There we go. I don't have it on. I got to share the screen. Technology is the enemy. That's one of my mottos. Technology is the enemy. There we go. Okay. So especially with just a few of you here, it is for you. I'm not getting paid for doing this or anything, and neither is Ryan. We don't have any agenda per se. We're here to answer your questions, provide you with information. So to the extent that you don't understand things and want to ask questions, go ahead, because if you don't get anything out of it, it's been a waste of our time. So with the few people we have, just ask questions and make sure that you understand what you want to understand. So the club does provide pension benefits. Once there's eligibility requirements, but for full-time permanent employees, it does provide pension benefits, and Ryan will get into the non-pension benefits that are provided. I'll go into those benefits a little bit, but more than anything, it's about general financial planning. The club provides some benefits. You're going to have to do other places to find out your full retirement benefits, and I'll talk about what those are and how you access them. So you're going to have to do your own retirement planning. You can't just rely on the golf club. So now it doesn't want to move when it's that's going to be a problem. When I'm sharing the screen, it won't. Okay. You know more about this than I do.
There we go. It's getting covered over here.
See, I retired before this stuff got started happening.
Now it should move with you.
Okay. So we'll talk about your retirement strategy, how much money you'll need. That's something people really don't have much idea. You know, do you need 100,000, $500,000, $1 million, 10 million? How much do you need to retire on? Where it's all going to come from. As I said, you know, the club provides something, but you're going to get money from other sources. Look at some personal decisions you're going to make, and then some other considerations. In the appendix, I've got information on how to invest, stocks, bonds, etc. I'm not going to go through that, but it's in here if you want to get a copy of the presentation and read about that. So your retirement strategy, you should think about it. So a couple of joke things in here. You know, people just think it's going to take care of itself. It doesn't. So if your strategy is to, oh, now it's going to go automatically, is to, you know, at 65, divorce and marry somebody rich, well, then that works for you if you can do it. But if it doesn't happen, you're in trouble. So we should be planning for your retirement. You know, when you're 20, maybe not 25, but once you get into your 30s, if you don't start planning and you don't start the process, yeah, now it's on an automatic, Ryan. It's moving every 10 seconds or something. So if you don't start planning now, you're going to get to you're going to be 50, 55, 60, and you're not going to have enough money, and it's too late to get going. So start planning early. You don't have to be putting away $100,000 a year when you're 25 or 30 years old. But if you start putting some money away, it's amazing how it will grow and will help you out in the future. Check on it often. You don't have to check the markets every day, but see where you are, you know, periodically. Are you making progress? Are you in the right plan? Are you making the right progress? And eventually you will achieve your retirement goals. You'll have enough money eventually. These are all excuses. Everybody can have excuses why they don't save. You know, the government will look after me. I'll start next year. I can't afford it right now. I need every penny. Those are all excuses. At the end of the day, if you want to make those excuses, you'll be 80 years old and you'll still be working. So, you know, I like to talk to my kids. It's your choice, and they seem to have made the wrong choice. Well, one's made the right choice, one's made the wrong choice. You can go and you can travel and you can have a great time in your 20s and really not get serious until you're 30. That's fine. You're going to be working until 65 or 70. If you want to buckle down in your 20s and get ahead with your career and make more money and start saving, then maybe you're going to be lucky like me and be able to retire at 55 and have all that time in your retirement to do what you want. So you know, I'll have a slide a little bit later. You can't have everything. And so be aware at whatever stage you are in your life and your career, what it is that you want both now and in the future, and there's trade-offs. And that's fine if you make the trade-offs, understand what you're trading off. And if you want to have a lot of fun and spend money now, you're going to be working a lot longer. Just a simple thing here. And I remember when I did this 5 years ago, every time I saw, for those of you who remember Greg Poole, who worked in the pro shop, every time I saw him after this slide, he said, I can't go and get a coffee anymore. So here's an example. $2 a day. If you just go to Timmy's and your large coffee is now $2.17, not $2, but if it's $2, you're spending $730 a year on coffee. If you instead took that $2 and just put it into an investment account that only earned 5% a year. So we're not talking about massive funds where you're going to have taking a lot of risk. It's a pretty low return, 5%. After 30 years, you've accumulated $50,000. So that's an example of how just putting a little bit of money aside, you can end up accumulating quite a lot of money. Now, 30 years from now, $50,000 doesn't purchase you anywhere near what it purchases now, but it does show that just a little bit, you know, if you put away $2 a day, $5 a day, $10 a day, it will accumulate to a lot and really help you in your retirement. How much do you need? So it depends. Everybody's different. What do you want in retirement? Other than this place, which obviously is not the cheapest place to belong to, I don't have massive spending needs. I've decided I don't want to own a place down in the desert. You know, if you want to own a place in the desert and you want to own a place up in Whistler and you want to be golfing at Pebble Beach and doing all those things, well, you need a lot of money. If you want to have a relatively sedate lifestyle, you don't want to be traveling the world, then you don't need as much money. And consciously make those decisions for yourself in terms of what it is that you want in your retirement. And if you're comfortable having more of a sedate lifestyle that doesn't cost as much money, then you don't need as much money. But don't expect to retire on a little bit of money and then be doing everything. So make those conscious decisions about what it is that you want. So how much do you need? So replacement ratio, everybody hears this 70%. You know, you need 70%, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a couple of slides. If you're earning, and just to make the math easier, if you're making $100,000 now, if you made $70,000 in retirement, you can live the same lifestyle. I've read materials on that. There is no mathematical work behind that. Some financial planner once upon a time said 70 sounds like a good number, and that sticks in everybody's minds. There is nothing magical about it. In fact, it depends on a lot of these. It's generally going to be between 60 and 80%, but as I said earlier, it depends on what you want. If you want to be golfing at Pebble Beach, you want to retire at 55, you're going to need more. And if you're comfortable retiring later and not doing as much, you need less. So make your conscious decisions. Why would you need less in retirement than you need now? Well, for most people, I mean, work-related expenses, whether you're taking the bus here, whether you're driving here, you got gas, higher insurance costs because you're using your car for work. Seniors discounts. I get my coffees now at McDonald's. I get a 20% discount on my coffee because I'm over 55, right? So look at me go. Fewer high-priced purchases, so you generally aren't buying more things for the house and other things like that. Hopefully the mortgage is paid off, so you don't have mortgage payments, or they're becoming relatively smaller. If you're making less money, you're paying less taxes. So you have that. And the piece that people don't really realize is how much money, and we'll see it in a minute, but the amount of money that you're putting into CPP, employment insurance, that you're contributing to your RRSPs, once you retire, you don't do that. And another one, I think, you know, Pat's in the union, your union dues, you're not paying union dues. So there's expenses associated with working that once you retire, you don't have those expenses. On the other hand, there are some that might increase. You got a lot of time, you might want to travel more, and traveling gets expensive. Your house might be getting older. You might need more money to maintain an older house. Long-term care, I'm not going to get into any of that today. Generally, what we kind of talk about is your house is something that eventually, when you get to be ill health, you sell your house and that money pays for your long-term care. If you don't have any money or you have very little money, the government will generally provide nursing home coverage. So what we say is you don't really want to plan to have a ton of money there, but you need something for what might happen if you're in ill health. Your kids, hopefully you don't need to provide your kids with too much money once you're retired. Luckily, mine are long gone and don't require any money. They just need me to get them back on flights when they have COVID, when they shouldn't be traveling. And then inflation. So that's something, you know, this presentation for the last 15 or 20 years, I've never really had to talk much about inflation. Nobody knew what inflation was. We've had 1% to 2% inflation for 30 years now. Suddenly it's all the news. And what you think you need to retire on, now everything getting more and more expensive, you're going to need more money if they don't rein in inflation going forward. So inflation can be a key in terms of if you're on a fixed income and suddenly everything starts costing a lot more, it can catch up to you in a hurry. So if we just look at a little bit of the math, and this does use the 70% replacement ratio, and it just kind of helps you go through it. So if you're making $70,000 right now, just putting in some rough numbers, don't hold me to them too much. You might have $4,000 of work-related expenses, coming to work, paying for gas, having to buy clothes that you need to wear at work, things like that. You're contributing about $3,000 to the club's pension plan. You should be saving, say, about $4,000 in additional money in your RRSP. You're paying about $5,000 to CPP and employment insurance, and you're probably paying about $10,000 in taxes. So when it's all said and done, you're taking home about $44,000 to actually cover off your day-to-day living expenses. On the other hand, if you've got $49,000 coming in retirement, you don't have any of those expenses. You're no longer contributing to the pension. You're not putting money into your RRSP. Pension income is not subject to CPP or EI deductions, and your taxes are less because your income is less, and there's additional deductions for seniors. Bang, you've actually got exactly the same take-home income. And I made the math work. It won't work that nicely for people. But that's the idea behind the 70%. You don't need as much in retirement as you do when you're working because of a lot of these factors. Now, everybody's got to do this kind of calculation themselves because it's different for everybody. The 70%, you might think I need more than this. I'm scraping by. I might need less than this. And then the numbers are different for different people. So that's the sort of thing that you want to do yourself and say, how much do I really need when I retire? So a word about inflation and how much it can affect it. So this presentation didn't have this box in it until I put it in 2 days ago. We just talked about 2% inflation. Even at 2% inflation, something that costs $200 in 20 years is going to cost $300. So a 50% increase. And if you think about retiring at 60, that's by the time you're 80, everything's 50% more expensive. And that's only at a 2% inflation rate. If we start getting into a 4% inflation rate, now you're talking about it's more than doubling. So if we stay into a high inflation rate environment, the inflation is really going to affect the purchasing power of your money. So hopefully government will get the inflation under control. Hopefully it's still just a byproduct of COVID and supply chain problems. But right now, that's why governments, for those of us who were around back in the 70s and early 80s, when inflation was causing trouble, it's seniors that it hurts more than anybody because they're on fixed incomes. People that are working, there might be a lag between the wages going up and inflation going up, but eventually they're going to have to be, kind of going up together. But if you're on a fixed income, then that becomes problematic, and the seniors really are the ones that suffer from inflation. Life expectancy. Those are, I guess, I'm an actuary. So what that means, I had to take courses in mortality. I actually read stuff on mortality. It's quite interesting. There's a recent thing that came out about 2-3 months ago. There are studies now about the effect of COVID. So for those of you who are doubting, mortality in the US, so this is US oriented, mortality has not had this big an increase since the Spanish flu in 1917. So COVID really has increased mortality. It has in Canada as well. So some of the data right now, will COVID come back or not? Other than that, though, for the first time in over 50 years, if you take out the effects of COVID, mortality has actually increased in the US. The US has got such a problem with obesity, and the opiate crisis is happening in Canada as well, that for the first time in a long, long time, the improvements due to things like heart disease, cancer, et cetera, are being outweighed by obesity, drug use, et cetera. That being said, what I really want to talk about here is when you hear about life expectancy. The life expectancy in Canada is about 77, 78 years. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to retire at 65. I'm only going to have 12 or 13 years left. No. The life expectancy, when you hear a life expectancy is 77, that's from the time you were born. If you make it to 65, you've gotten rid of about a quarter of your mortality, right? I mean, you still get accidents, all sorts of ways that you could die between 0 and 65. If you get to 65, you're expected to live, if you're a man, till 86, and a female to almost 90. Okay, so when you hear about a life expectancy of 77 or 78, when you're planning for retirement, that's not a number you should be thinking about. You should be thinking, if I get to 65 and I'm still alive, I'm likely to live for another 20 to 25 years. And that's what your plan should be, not for 10 or 15 years. And these have been improving consistently until the last 2 years. And the number of people that I know who should be dead right now, if not for modern technology on medical, is amazing. That's, as I said, I study mortality. The biggest improvement in mortality, guys like me in the 50s have a heart attack, gone. Now they just put a pig's heart in you and you live for another 25 years. It's amazing. About 1/3 of all deaths in middle-aged men particularly were heart attacks. And now that's down to about 15%. I mean, there's the amount you hear about cancer and all of that. It's heart disease is the #1 improvement in mortality, and primarily male. So this is kind of where I talk to my kids about. So for my kids are 27 and 29 now. It used to be that people would start saying, you get out of high school, you get your job immediately, and you start saving for retirement at 20. Nobody thought about retiring early, and they'd retire at 65 and they'd be dead by 80. So you're working for 45 years to get 15 years of pension. Now people think, I'm just going to play around. I'm not going to start working and saving anything till 30, and I'm going to retire at 55. Now you're going to live to 90. It doesn't work. Okay. So that's the first thing, is to realize that this does not work. You can go on here and have this a little bit more here, or if you're going to start this savings horizon is going to go way out. So again, make your decisions in terms of what it is that you want to be doing. One of the worst things for planning for retirement, it's kind of disappeared now. The auto industry was, well, two places. Freedom 55. Everybody knows Freedom 55. That whole moniker, it's a Canadian thing, London Life. That whole moniker, everybody just, I get to retire at 55. I get to retire at 55. And the other was the auto industry back in the 70s, 80s, brought in 30 and out. You work 30 years, you get a full pension, you're out of here. So guys get a job right out of high school at 18 years old, 48 years old, they got 30 years of service and they're retired. And you see all these people doing it, and then that's just people then had expectations that just weren't realistic. Okay, so that's how much you need and kind of examples, but you should be doing it, on your own about what it is that you think you need based on your situation. So where is it coming from? So there's 3 main sources, and I'll go into them in more detail, but the club provides pension benefits, and we'll talk about what the club provides. Government provides a lot of benefits, and we'll go into them, and I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on that, because I get asked, a good number of the senior employees around here corner me and ask me, what should I do about my CPP? Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about CPP and the pros and cons of when to take it. And then maybe I don't have to talk to each of you individually as you get older. And then personal. So you got 3 parts to this. So you've done all the work and you've said, this is how much money I need to retire on. Where's it coming from? This is going to be the balancing. The club's going to provide something. Government's going to provide something. This is what you're going to need to work on. If you say, I need to get to this place, you're going to have to work on that one to get to that place. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but not too much. So government has 3 programs. So the Canada Pension Plan, first, it's out of the news now. It is very well funded, okay? Your Canada Pension Plan will be there when you retire, even if you're younger, the youngest person here. Canada Pension Plan is very well funded. It is, the governance on it is very strong. When there was some problems with it about 30 years ago, they put in some new rules, and it is the most complicated valuation. They actually project out the entire workforce for 100 years with birth rates, death rates, immigration rates, workforce participation rates, and they project out for 100 years how many people are going to be working, paying into it, how many people are going to retire, and make sure that there's enough money in there, and they adjust the contribution rates periodically to make sure it'll be there. So that's the number one thing. It will be there. It is a true pension plan. You guys are, every one of your paychecks, CPP comes off of that paycheck, and that money goes into a separate account. Government doesn't touch that. It is separate only for CPP, and that fund then pays the benefits out of CPP. So it is segregated from government, okay? It's run by government agency, the CPP Investment Board, but it is segregated funds. So the intention is working people pay into it. When you retire, you get money out of it. So it's really like a pension plan. It starts at 65, and we'll talk a little bit then about this now. You can start it as early as 60, but you get less. You can start it as late as 70, and you get more. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of that. I'll go into a little bit on how it's calculated, but right now it provides, if you're eligible for the maximum, it provides $1,254 a month. And the average person, so this, to get this, you really had to have worked full-time from age 18 to 65, earning a pretty good wage to get that amount. The average person, though, given that quite often they didn't work all the years, or they didn't have sufficient income for some of the years, the average person's getting about $800 a month that retired in January of 2022. So this is new data. That would be the average person, okay? Old age security, all you got to do is be a resident. So it comes at 65. You don't pay into it. That is just from the government. The government, out of the goodness of its heart, just at 65 starts handing out checks. Okay, you're not contributing to it. Well, you're contributing it when you pay your income taxes. It's just general money that the government collects and pays out. You either get it or you don't. There's no proration on it or anything other than if you're too high of income. So it provides $650 a month. So you can see if you're eligible for both of those and you had the maximum, you're almost $2,000 a month coming already from the government, okay? Guaranteed income supplement is income tested. And I'm not going to get into the details of it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore from that. It is, if your income, when you're over 65, if your income is below a certain threshold, the government bumps you up to that threshold. And what it is, I mean, if your income was 0, they'll provide you with a minimum. And then as your income goes up, they take away $1 for every $2 you get. So if you get up to a certain level of income, you don't get GIS. But if you're below that, they'll give you extra money to top you up. So CPP, you contribute to it every year. So right now, it's your earnings between the 3,500 was frozen a long time ago. And then this is the maximum. So if you earn more than $64,900 in 2022, you'll be eligible for a full year maximum contribution to the CPP. The YBE is called the year's basic exemption. That's the 3,500, and the YMPE is the year's maximum pensionable earnings. That goes up. The 64,900 goes up every year based on increases in the average industrial wage. Right now, the contribution rate is 5.7% of earnings. So you contribute 5.7% of all your earnings between those two numbers, and the club contributes an identical amount. So if you put in 3,000, the club's putting in 3,000. If you're self-employed, you got to put the whole 6,000 in yourself. But right now, it's you're all employees of the club. Whatever you're contributing, the club is contributing an equal amount. That will increase to 5.95% in 2023. So this tells you how much in 2022 you'll be contributing to CPP. So this gets into the example. It would be 3654. I rounded it to 4,000 in that graph earlier. Starting in 2024, there is going to be an additional layer, which I won't get into. It is what it is, but for higher income people, there's actually going to be an additional CPP on top of that, including contributions and benefits. So how much does it provide? The concept is that if you're fully eligible for CPP, it's based on 25% of income. So if you're always, if we ignored inflation and we ignored, places where you weren't working, if you earned $50,000 every year, CPP would provide you 25% of that, $12,500. Okay, so the concept is it's intending to provide you with 25% replacement ratio, but it only provides it up to that year's maximum pensionable earnings. So if you're earning more than the 64.9, well, then it's capped and your earnings are going up. So the higher income you're providing, if you're earning more and more money, it's not providing as high a percentage replacement because it's only providing that 25% on your first $65,000 of income. Okay, so that's the concept behind CPP is 25% of your income up to that threshold. I won't get into all of this. It's there for anybody who wants to go through it, but those are the actual rules about how you can calculate your CPP. The key is here is to get access to Service Canada online. I can't remember exactly how to do it because I did it a long time ago, but you can access Service Canada. I think you have to actually fill out a form online and then they send you a letter by mail with your password. They won't actually do anything online because they're paranoid and they're living in the dark ages. But once you've got access to your online Service Canada account, it will tell you every single year you've worked, and it will tell you what your earnings were in every year, and it will tell you what percentage of CPP you earned that year. You got 0.7 years of credit in 1992 and 0.72 years of credit in 1993, et cetera, and you can see your whole history. And so you could then figure out about how much CPP you would have if you go through all of these rules. Okay, there's additional rules. For instance, if you have kids, you can drop rules when you're at home taking care of your kids and things like that. But you can get your history on that, and that's about as much as I'm going to go through in terms of that. So when to start CPP? And like I say, I get asked that question a lot. There is no right answer. Okay, so I'm not going to say, hey, this is a great deal, you have to retire at this time. It does depend on your individual circumstances. If you started early, it's reduced by 7.2% a year. So if you started at 5 years early, it's going to be 36% reduction, which is a pretty stiff reduction. So you're going to get it for 5 years. You're going to get it between 60 and 65, but you're going to get less, and then it's going to be less forever, right? It doesn't jump back up at 65. If you were entitled to $1,000, a 36% reduction, you're going to get $740, and it's going to be $740 for as long as you live, indexed, but and it would have, the 1,000 would have been indexed. Okay, so if you die at 64, it's great. You got 4 years of benefits you never would have got. But if you live to 100 for 35 years, you're getting less money than you would have if you delayed getting it. On the other hand, the increases are 8.4%. So if you wait until 70 to get it, you're 5 times 8.4% is 42%. So your $1,000 would be $1,420. So it's quite a big increase. Again, though, if you die at 69, I get more, but I never got it, right? But if you're going to live to 100, boy, getting that extra, giving up getting anything between 65 and 70 to get more for 30 years is wonderful. So it depends on your circumstances. What I've done is, so I've just to show you, so just assumed inflation of 2.5%, wages go up at 3%, and investment returns is 6%. So if you got this money, if you just were investing it at 6%, and you can see if you take it early, doesn't show very much, but you're getting more through these early years. But if you live to 100, you're going to end up getting, gosh, that's almost $100,000 less if you live to 100 compared to getting it at 60 or 70. You can see here, though, you're well ahead of the game by 70. So you have to think about your individual circumstances. Are you more concerned about, I need money now, you know, I got to eat, so I need CPP, so I'm going to take it now? Or, you know what, I don't need the money now, and I'm worried if I live to 90 or 100, I'm going to run out. Now I've got more of a stopgap, that it's going to be providing a lot more if I run out of other sources. So it's your individual choice, how much you need the money, taxation, etc. About, you know, if you're working part-time through here, then you're probably better to not take it, because you've got some income. If you take it, it's taxable. You're going to increase your taxes. So wait and then get more later on. If you need the money, you need the money. So from a purely economic perspective, it's better to delay taking it till 70, but your individual circumstances. So just some of the things I've said: you need the income now. What's your tax situation? CPP, if you're on the higher end of income, then the more CPP you get, the more income you get, your OAS is clawed back. So you know, this is all great. I get more CPP, and then they don't give you OAS, and are you any further ahead of the game? So you got to take that into account. And what is the, you know, protecting against running out of money in the future? Certainly delaying it helps with that. Old age security. So basically, if you live here for 10 years, you get old age security. $649 a month. It's indexed quarterly. The government, in the goodness of their hearts, actually to buy votes for people over 75 years old, decided that it's going to be 10% higher once you hit 75. So once you hit 75, it's a little bit more. There is a clawback. And so between these, if you're earning less than 80,000, you get OAS. That's it. They start taking back money. And once you're up to, if you have earnings in retirement of 133,000, you don't get it at all. And between those, it's prorated taking away. But if your income, and this is in retirement, not what you're earning when you're working, in retirement, if your earnings are less than that right now, you'll get the full OAS. So the majority of people do get the full old age security. And that's regardless of what you're, whereas CPP, if you're earning more money when you're working, you get more CPP. OAS is the same for everybody. Doesn't matter what your employment income was, everybody gets the same OAS. So here it is, you know, that same dollar amount, if all you're making is $20,000, that's a pretty good replacement ratio. But when you're earning more, by the time it's clawed back, it really doesn't amount to much at all. So for the lower income earners, OAS is quite a valuable benefit. For high income earners, it's not going to give you a whole lot. This graph was a picture, so it's not updated, but it's not far off. So this kind of gives you an idea now if we put all the government benefits together, and then you can start filling in the gaps of what you need from other sources. So OAS provides quite a bit of money if you're only earning $20,000, and as you get older, it doesn't provide much. CPP provides a relatively equal amount until you start getting higher income and it grades off. The expanded CPP, it's going to take 40 years for that to come in. So it starts in 2024. CPP is getting bigger, but it's not retroactive. It's only every year you work after 2024, you're going to pay more to CPP and get more benefits. And so it will start to provide more. And here you see the GIS I talked about, that if you are a lower income person, it will provide more money to you. But once you get up into a reasonable income amount, it's not going to provide anything. So when we talked about needing 70 to 80%, you can see how much of a gap we have here. The government's providing something, and it's not bad through here, but there's definitely a gap to getting to the 60, 70, 80% that whatever it is that you think you need to retire on. Are there any questions on that before I move into the club benefits? Okay, so the club provides a number of different benefits, and I'm only going to talk about the DC plan. So the union has its own plan. It works the same as the club's plan. The benefits are different, the contributions are different, but the concepts are the same. And there is an old DB plan, defined benefit plan, that there's nobody in this room is part of, so I won't talk about that at all. Okay, so in the DC plan, you contribute 3.5% of your earnings up to the YMPE, and we saw that earlier, that was $64,900, and 5% of earnings above that. So the concept is, on your earnings up to that YMPE, the club's providing contributions under CPP, you're earning benefits under CPP, you need less coverage under the company plan than you do on earnings above the YMPE. So that's why it's a higher amount both for you and for the club on earnings above that threshold, because that's where the government starts to not provide as much benefits, so the club and you kick in providing more. This was something that came up when I did this presentation. We didn't really even know what was in there 5 years ago, and we've clarified it and made it clear. You can contribute into this plan. So we'll talk a little bit more about the plan. You can put your own money into it. Instead of going to a bank or a financial advisor or some other place and investing your money, you can put your money into this plan as well. And after you see with this plan, whether that's something you want to do or not, but if you want to take an extra 5% of pay off your paycheck and put into this plan, you can, okay, if you want. You're eligible for the plan if you're a full-time employee or you're part-time and you've been here for about 2 years and have a minimum earnings amount. It's immediately vested. If you're in the plan for 1 week and you leave, whatever's contributed in that week goes to you. It's not like you have to stay here till 55 or 60 to get it. Once the money's there, it is yours. The money is kept separate from the club's money. So there is a trust fund and the money is in the trust fund. The club cannot access that money. It is earmarked for you. It is as safe can be. I remember one time doing a presentation, this would have been back in the 90s, and it was to a bunch of Polish engineers, and Poland had just come out of communism. They had no idea of a trust fund. I said, well, the money is put into a trust fund. What's that? The government can't touch it. Well, there's no such thing. The government can take our money whenever they want. No, really, they can't. They could not grasp the concept of putting money somewhere where the government or the company couldn't just take it. It is safe. Right now, and the Pension Benefits Committee looks at this periodically, the money is invested in balanced funds. So a balanced fund means that it's about 60% stocks, about 40% bonds. It's a mixture of companies. There's Canadian stocks, US stocks, foreign stocks. It's a mixture of all sorts of assets. The club does not pick and choose those, what stocks to buy. It's two investment managers, Beutel Goodman and Leith Wheeler. They are two of what, the biggest 10 or 20 investment managers in Canada. We're not picking, we haven't picked fly-by-night investment managers. We're not trying to chase the next Uber, the next Tesla. It's mainly invested in, you know, blue chip stocks that are expected to do well in the long term. So they're the ones who actually pick the stocks. We've got a little, you know, I'm guessing that each of them invests $10-20 billion, something like that. And we've got $5 million with them. Okay, so they're not doing anything for us particularly, but we're got a little piece of a $20 billion fund, and they're managing that, and they have the people to manage that amount of assets. And so we get a little share of that and get access to all of their expertise. These, once upon a time, people that worked for these firms were members here, and they gave us fees for the $100 million fund when we've only got 5 million. So we are paying a lot less fees than we should be, and a lot less. We're paying, I think, about 80 basis points with 0.8%. So if there's $100 in there, we're paying about 80 cents a year for them to manage it all. If you go to a bank or an investment firm just off the street, you're probably going to pay 2.5%. Okay, so it's very favorable fees that are we're getting under these funds. Your money, if you're in the DC plan, is just you're getting whatever the return is on these funds is what's credited to your account. Okay. We also charge virtually nothing in administration expenses. Okay, so most of the expenses of running the pension plan, the club just pays those. We don't allocate it to the accounts. If you're going to go in, you know, a lot of companies, all of the expenses associated with managing the pension fund get charged to the members. That's not done here. There's some like trustee fees, and there's a couple of fees that go in there, but the vast majority of the expenses associated with running this plan are paid for directly by the club and are not allocated to your accounts. So this is a question I get asked all the time. Every time anybody leaves the plan, I get a phone call from them. What do I do with the money? Okay, so I'll tell you what you do with the money. Once you leave the club will not keep your money. Okay, you're no longer an employee of the club, whether you just quit, whether you were fired, whether you retired, doesn't matter. You have to take your money out of the plan. So you're going to have to go to a financial advisor, a bank, a credit union, some sort of place, and say, I've got this money coming from Capilano Golf Club. I need to put it somewhere. And you're going to have to decide then, from that point on, you're going to have to decide how to invest it. Okay. So almost everybody will put it into another, what's called locked in retirement account. And what that means is that you can't just get the cash. So if you've got $100,000, you would transfer that $100,000 to, and I'll just say a bank, just because it's easier to say bank than go blah, 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 blah. That money you cannot access until you're at least 55 years old. And after that, you can only get so much of it a year as you're retired. The government doesn't want you to just blow that money. They've given you a tax deduction to accumulate that money. So therefore it has to be used for retirement. If it's below a certain amount, something like 20,000, you're allowed to take it out and take it in cash, but you have to, it would all be taxable. So if it's, as long as it's above that threshold, it has to be moved somewhere else, and then it cannot be accessed immediately. And the bank or whatever it is will tell you how much you can take out each year. You could actually go and purchase an annuity from an insurance company. So you would go and say, I got 100,000. What will you pay me per month? And they may say, well, we'll give you $400 a month. Okay, here's my 100,000. You now give me $400 a month for the rest of my life. Annuity costs have been very high lately. You lose the flexibility. It's available. Very few people do take it. Some people at retirement do. Certainly very few people do it when they're not retirement eligible. And the other place you can is if you're going somewhere else and they'll take your money, then you can move it there. So if I'm going to go and get a job at Point Grey, and Point Grey's got a DC plan, and I like their investments, and I'm going to pay less fees. I'm going to take my Capital Animal money and I'm going to move it to Point Grey pension plan, and then they'll monitor it, and I don't have to worry about it. So you can do that as well. If you have voluntary contributions, now they're not locked in. So you got the same options, but you are allowed to take it in cash. So if you say, you know what, I want to make use of this pension plan that the club has, and I want 5% of my pay to come off my paycheck and go into the pension plan, and then you leave and you say, oh boy, now I don't have a job and I need this money, you can just access all of that money. It would be taxable. You can put it into your RRSP and it's not taxable until you pull it out, but you can take it in cash if you want. Once it leaves the plan, we have nothing to do with it. You have to manage it from that point on. If you blow it, that's up to you. Whatever you do, don't come back to the club looking for, oh, I didn't have enough money, or I gave it somewhere and they blew it. That's your responsibility. The club is looking out for you while you're an employee, but once you leave, it's your responsibility. So how much will you get? It's just whatever amount you put in and whatever the investment returns are, it accumulates up. So I've got some examples in here, but it really does depend on your individual circumstances, how long you're an employee here, how much your earnings are, et cetera, whether you put voluntary contributions. But you can see that it does, ramp up. If you want copies of the presentation, Monica can send it to you. Just examples here, and you can see, starting earlier, you start putting it in, you can see by 65, you're getting about a 30% replacement ratio. So we're talking about those replacement ratios. We were seeing government, depending on your income level, might be providing 20, 30, 40%. If you were working here for 40 years and in this plan for 40 years, you're getting into the 30% here. We're really closing that gap quite a bit, okay? Or if you were in a different plan that was similar for these years. But now if you don't start till 35, this is where it's talk about, start early, start getting going on things, start accumulating some when you're younger. If you don't start till 35, it caps out at 20%. And here's where, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to work till 70 or 75 to start getting more of that income. So these are just examples, and they're based on a ton of assumptions. But the concept is, if you were in a plan like this for your whole career, it would provide maybe 30% replacement ratio. And if you skip 10 or 15 years, that's already down to 20%. Okay, so get the money in earlier, wherever that is, whether it's this plan, whether it's somewhere else. Start thinking about saving something and getting yourself started. Personal planning. So we've talked now about the government. We talked about the club. Now we're talking about you and what you're going to do. So we said here you need 30 to 40% might come from the government, 20 to 30 might come from the DC plan if you're there the whole time. So now you need another 5 to 20 to make this work, depending on how you want to your lifestyle in retirement. And particularly if you haven't been saving for a big period in here, it comes into here, right? So if you didn't start in the DC plan until you were 40, well, now you need to have more from somewhere else. Okay, so where does that come from? All sorts of places. you can save money, you can all sorts of investments, and we'll talk a little bit about RRSPs and TFSAs, rental income, real estate. You can work in retirement, have a little bit of, talk to Pat. Pat might work April and October, get on the tractor when we need you and earn a little bit of extra money, right? So, that's something that you can fill in the gaps on. So all sorts of areas that you can. What I want to focus on is the RRSPs and the TFSAs, because those are the two main vehicles where you can tax shelter money. Okay, so if you're going to put money aside, you should use one of these two vehicles as opposed to just putting it somewhere where the investment income is taxable. So RRSPs, you can contribute up to 18% of your pre-retirement income. So of your pre-tax income, which is a lot. And very few people contribute that amount. So that's the maximum is 29,000. So if you're making about 200,000, it's about $170,000 you cap out. So it's 18% for your first about 170,000, and then it's capped at that 29,000. It is less what's known as the pension adjustment. For you in the DC plan, that is the amount that you contribute to the DC plan. So if your earnings are less than 64,000, you're contributing 3.5% to the DC plan. The club is paying 3.5%, that's 7. You could put another 11 into the RRSP. If you're higher income earner, so you got some of it 3.5, some at 5, then that 11 can shrink down as low as 8. But everybody here could contribute somewhere between 8 and 11% of pay to an RRSP, or equivalently as voluntary contributions to the DC plan. If you don't make it, you don't lose it. Okay, so if you've gone 10, 20 years where you've had income and you didn't put anything into your RRSP, it keeps accumulating. And you have what's known as unused RRSP room. And you can make that contribution at any time. So I believe it is for me, so it should be for everybody else. When you get your return back from the CRA, so you do your taxes, they send you a letter back and say, you did all this wrong, because we never do it right. This was all wrong, this was wrong, this is what you owe. At the bottom, by the way, this is how much RRSP room you have. Okay, so that should be on your statement there, and you'll be able to tell, is it 10,000, 20,000, 200,000? That's the amount that you have available that you can contribute to your RRSP. So you never lose it. It's there and it accumulates. Any year you don't use the maximum, it accumulates for future years. TFSAs, so they were introduced about 10 or 15 years ago. The difference between, okay, actually, I guess go back to the RRSP. The RRSP is before tax. So if you make $100,000 and you contribute $10,000 to the RRSP, your income for tax purposes is $90,000. So you're saving tax because the government doesn't include that in your earnings for the year. Then any investment income that you earn on it is not taxable as you earn it. So you get this money, $10,000. The government didn't take the tax on it. It earns investment income, and they never take the tax on the investment income. Eventually, though, when you take it out of the RRSP, they get their taxes. But you get that long period of time where you're paying the taxes later, presumably when you're in a lower tax bracket because you're retired than you were when you were working. A TFSA, you do not get the tax deduction on the contribution. Okay, so if you have $100,000 of income and you put $5,000 into the TFSA, you still have $100,000 of income. You do not get to take that off of your income for tax purposes. You do, however, still get the investment income tax-free. They don't charge you tax as you earn investment income. And then the kicker, though, is when you take it out, it's not taxable. So you never pay tax on that investment income that you earn. Okay, so different tax bracket, different concepts between the two, and they both can be useful tools. Again, your tax return should tell you how much TFSA room you have. Again, you don't lose it. It just gets carried forward. And so, you know, you could have about $100,000 a room. If you've never used a TFSA before, you could have about $100,000 a room by now. What should you do? Okay, I got $5,000. Do I put it into my RRSP or I put it in the TFSA? What do you do? Every situation is different. So what I'm going to talk about is give some concepts of some of the things you want to think about, but you got to think about your own situations. What's your tax rate now, and what do you think it's going to be in retirement? If you're in a high tax bracket, you're making $200,000, you're paying 50% tax on it. You know what? Putting into the RRSP and getting a tax deduction now, when I'm retired, I'm only going to be earning 80,000. I'm going to pay 25% tax. That sounds like a pretty good deal. And so if you're in a high tax bracket, putting money into the RRSP now, saving that high tax bracket, pulling it out when you're in a lower tax bracket is a good deal. On the other hand, if you're starting your career and you're not making that much money now, well, I don't really mind paying tax on it now because I'm in a low tax bracket. I can put it into the, it doesn't make sense to put it in the RSP. I can put it into the TFSA. And then when I'm pulling it out, when I'm older and I'm in a high tax bracket because I've done really well, now I don't have to pay tax on it. So it's a lot of it is where you think your tax bracket's going to be. Without going into all of the details, generally, because I've had to go through this with my kids, generally, if you're younger, TFSAs are a better thing. The money can sit there for ages and earn investment income that's never taxed. You're usually in a lower tax bracket now because you're upwardly mobile and you're going to move into higher tax brackets going forward. If you're more mid-career, 40s, 50s, then saving the tax now, putting into an RRSP can generally be the better one. But everybody's situation is different. But that's typically what, you know, the TFSAs when you're younger, the RRSPs when you get older. So I won't go through this slide, but this does show you the differences between the TFSAs and the RRSPs. So it just kind of summarizes it in there, summarizes kind of what I've said. There is more flexibility with the TFSA. You can kind of take it out, put it back in, etc., whereas the RRSP has more limitations on it. We're getting near the end then. What are we doing for time? What time is it?
Just after 3.
Okay, we're good time then. So just kind of some ending points, really. What can you do? One of the things is if you don't know you have the money, you don't miss the money. So if it's off your paycheck, so if you tell Monica, can you take 2% off my paycheck and put it into the DC plan? You don't even realize that you're saving 2%. It's just not on your paycheck. You just forget about it. And before you know it, you've accumulated money and you forgot you did it. When you get the money paid to you, and then you gotta, I'm gonna have to go to the bank and give them, I don't want to do that, right? If it's off your paycheck, it's a whole lot easier to do it. Other things, you know, when you do your taxes, you get a refund, just go and put it into my RRSP. Don't pay me the check. Put it directly into my RRSP because I'm living without that money. I can still live. I don't need the tax refund. So things like that. If you don't see the money to begin with, it's a whole lot easier to have it going to retirement and then you don't miss it. Spending habits. It's amazing. Actually, it's something I did because back shortly after I was married, and we're like, what kind of house can we afford? And we had something on the fridge and we kept track of every penny we spent for about 3 months. And it was quite eye-opening what you spend money on. And so making a budget and realizing, you know, the coffee, it's amazing how much the coffee can add up. And if you enjoy your coffee, it's fun, right? It's, you know, you don't want to be a hermit when you're young. You still want to enjoy your life, but kind of see where some of the money is going. And can I save a little bit more? Can I get away from some of these expenses and put that money into saving for my pension plan. You know, on that frame, I did a fair bit of work for the BC municipal, or the BC, what was it, the UBCM, Union of BC Municipalities. So the people that are in the public sector pension plans, everybody wants to be in a public sector pension plan, right? They're brilliant. I mean, they provide 50% replacement ratio, fully indexed. You got one of those plans, yeah, this is great. I did work, so the average person, you know, you take a cleaning person in a hospital, with the money that they're paying, when I showed you that, you know, they're paying CPP contributions, they're paying union dues, they're paying employment insurance, they're paying into the pension plan, they will have more income in retirement than they have now. I'm telling these guys, like, you know, it's crazy. They can't live. They can't put a roof over their kids' heads. But when they're retired, they're going to live like kings. Let them have the money now. So you have to balance it as well. You have to balance between, you still need to enjoy your life now and do what you need to do now, and retirement. And so keep that balance. So maximizing the tax sheltered opportunities. So another one, your principal residence is not taxable. So that's a good investment. Also, when you're looking at investments, unrealized gains are not taxable until you realize those gains. So for instance, if you buy a stock that doesn't pay a dividend, you don't, you know, that stock goes from $10 to $100 over 20 years. You don't pay that gain from the 10 to the 100 until you sell the stock. Whereas if you were investing it in the bank, every year you're paying tax on the income. And so to the extent that you are looking to save money outside of an RRSP or of a TFSA, having it in investments that don't pay that investment income, and therefore you don't have to pay the tax until later, can be advantageous. And there's more stuff on that in the appendix that I won't go through today. That we went backwards there. Income splitting, so that's something else to keep in mind. So as a pensioner now, I know that you can, as a pensioner, you get an extra, I think your first $10,000 of pension income is not taxable, and then your pension income can be split 50-50 with your spouse. And so that helps spread the income and lower your taxes as well. So be aware of those sorts of opportunities. So when you're thinking about how much you need, you know, when you're working, and if your spouse isn't working, you get a bit of deduction for them, but there's not a whole lot. You can't go and pretend they earned half your income. When you're retired, you can then give them a lot more of your income, which really reduces your tax bill. So be aware of that. Other things, keep in mind when you're going through it, you know, when you're getting married, divorced, disability leave, etc. In terms of things about what you want to do. I will, you know, just about this, just a little bit of, my dad passed away about a year ago, and it was pretty, he had things done pretty well. It was all arranged and was sorted out. Banks are so clueless. It's just driving me nuts. Okay. Get yourself in order. For most of you, it's probably your parents that you need to worry about as opposed to yourself. Get the living wills, get the wills sorted out, get things into joint bank accounts, get it all sorted out. Next thing you know, your parents or you don't have a sound mind and you can't do it. It's not an easy subject. Do it. Okay. We're dang lucky my dad was, and the lawyers, okay, he's a sound mind, we'll let you do all of this stuff. If we'd waited another couple of months, we couldn't have done it. And then you're just stuck, and oh boy, take care of it, okay? So we talked about this as well, you know, what do you want in retirement? What are your expectations? You know, and it's, if you want to go play Pebble Beach, you need a lot of money. If you want to, you know, just be in, well, camping these days costs a fortune. Geez, I'm a camper with a tent, and it's still, you know, you pay $35, $40 for a night to put a tent in the ground. But yeah, it's a big difference in terms of what you want to be doing with your life and making conscious decisions that, you know what, I'm comfortable with having that lifestyle in retirement, and therefore I'd rather retire and have an easier life and not work, because I'm not going to ask for a lot. But if I want a lot, maybe I got to work another 5 years. So my brother actually, as an example, I know he just bought a new car, and I said, well, Tom, you've got 4 cars already. What do you get another car for? He said, I look at it as 2 months of working. So instead of retiring at 60, I'm going to retire at 60 in 2 months. I justified my car. I know I need to do that. In a lot of ways, you can think of it that way too. You know, if I want this toy, I got to work that much longer to afford that toy. If I don't want the toy, maybe I can leave earlier. He likes his toys. So investment income, I guess, yeah, that's the title that I want to get here. The whole concept of investing, everybody thinks, okay, well, I'm going to invest my money. You know, most people don't start, so let's get realistic, till 35, 40 years old. I'm retiring at 60. So I got to invest my money for 20 to 30 years. You don't. You're going to be investing your money till you're 90. So when you're thinking about your investment horizon, you're not thinking about from today to 60, you're thinking about today till 90, okay? So when you think about, oh, well, you know, I'm getting older, maybe I should have less risk because I'm only 5 years away from retirement. All these investment planners say you should be taking risk off the table. If you're in a DC plan and have RRSPs and you're managing your money, you can't afford to just go and put it in something that's earning 1% when you're 60 years old. In order to continue to have a decent standard of living, you need to continue to have risk, and you have a long-term investment horizon. And so keep that in mind. Your investment horizon is your lifespan, not your working lifespan. And that is it. So like I say, before I ask questions, there's about 15 or 20 slides in here talking about Canadian equities, US equities, fixed incomes, types of investments. So if you are investing yourself and want to know, you know, what those are, you can go through the presentation and find out more about them. But since the plan doesn't provide investment choice, it's not something that the plan wants to really provide, or the club wants to provide detailed information on. So I won't include it in this in my speaking points. So does anybody have any questions?
For the RRSPs and the TFSAs, there's a whole bunch of places you can go and look to start with one of those accounts, whether it's banks or robo-advisors or whatever. How would you have any recommendation on like the criteria that you should be looking at when you're looking at any of those options?
Well, I will say, it doesn't matter to the club, but RRSP and a voluntary contribution to the DC plan, it's the same thing. It's effectively an RRSP. You will not find a place that has those low fees. So if you're comfortable with that as an investment, a balanced fund approach as an investment, and you're comfortable with Beutel, Goodman, and Leith Wheeler, you're going to do better there than you are going to a bank who's probably going to have just as much chance giving it to those 2 investment advisors and charging you 2.5%. If you want to, though, get into, you know, you're at a point where I want it all in equities. I want to take risk. I want higher returns. I'm young, and if I lose it, I can recover it. Then they're all kind of the same. You know, I wouldn't go and say, you know, a bank is better than, I mean, almost all the big investment managers are owned by banks anyway. They've pretty much cornered the market, and it's almost like a monopoly. They all charge the same fees. They do the same thing. So yeah, I mean, if you know somebody, a lot depends on the money you have too. You've got to be you really have to be over $1 million before they care about you. You know, if you got more than $1 million, they'll start to talk to you, and, you know, we can maybe do better fees, and, you know, we can talk and plan better. If you're under $1 million, you're just going to get the cookie cutter. they're going to throw things in front of you. You're going to have to go on the website to do your stuff. And, they're kind of all the same. I don't think, do you have anyone, there's nothing that,
Should find someone to trust and someone to like deal with, whether it's
Yeah.
RBC, whoever kind of answer that phone quicker, at least talk to a similar
Yeah.
person each time. My recommendation.
I mean, there's firms out there. My daughter doesn't do the financial investment or anything, but she works at Raymond James. So that, Raymond James, Edward Jones, those sorts of places, they're not affiliated with the banks. I think, as Ryan said, one of the advantages there is people tend to stay there longer. When you go to a bank, it's a different person every week, right? The ability to get continuity in a bank is not good.
And for TFSA, I say Wealthsimple would also be pretty educational, self-taught way to go. And they keep fees quite a bit lower than the banks, not as low as our DC plan, but they'll probably be the lowest retail management expense ratio plan.
And you can do it all yourself too, if you want. So I do it all myself, just through BMO Investor Line. I buy all my own stocks and I pay $9.95 a trade, and that's it. I don't pay any fees and I get whatever is earned. There's no cut being taken on it at all. So if you're comfortable doing that, you can take that approach too. Any other? I just better check the chat. There's 2 chats in here. Looking good online. So the 2 chats are from Monica and Pat. So if there is anybody online who wants to ask a question, send something through iChat. Oh, now I've there you are. Okay, Ryan.
Okay, guys. So I handled the extended health and dental component of the program through Pacific Blue Cross. I'm just going to kick it off with a little educational video on just a general regarding Pacific Blue Cross and some of their services to kick things off.
Welcome to the most important membership of your life. You might have other memberships for local attractions,
Okay.
to collect points, or even most important membership of your life. You might have other memberships for local attractions, to collect points, or even buy in bulk. But your Pacific Blue Cross membership is different. It gives you the power to live your best life because it's about your health. It's a key that gives you access to healthy coverage, savings, and service. And it opens the door to the best possible healthcare in BC. When you have a Pacific Blue Cross membership, it's always there with you to improve your health and well-being. It's there with you when you have your health benefits data available at your fingertips, so you can stay on top of you and your family's health needs. And when you're comforted to know your information is stored safely in BC. It's with you when you take advantage of Pacific Blue Cross health initiatives, so you can keep your mind and body healthy, whether you're at work or at play. Your membership is with you when you have access to a vast and growing provider network, so you can get the best health care in your community, no matter where in the province you live. And it's with you when you save on additional Pacific Blue Cross insurance, shop at preferred pharmacies, or get deals on health and wellness, so you can pursue your favorite pastime. It's there with you when you submit claims online quickly, giving you time to celebrate those special moments in life. Your membership is with you when you're rewarded with discounts on personal health insurance because you choose to live a healthy lifestyle. And it's with you while you enjoy the present, knowing you're prepared for the future with a retirement health plan. It's with you when you have the world's most recognized travel insurance, so you can feel confident setting off on your big adventure. And it's with you while you recover from a critical illness, so you can focus on your health. not your finances. Whether you have health coverage through work or on your own, you're a member of Pacific Blue Cross, BC's #1 health benefit.
Okay, so a general introduction to Pacific Blue Cross. As mentioned in the video, they're one of the top providers within the province of BC and especially Western Canada. And they've provided us with the benefits for a number of years now, I believe, at least since I've been around, and they've been quite pleasant to work with. But what I'm going to talk about today is a little overview on the general benefits first and foremost, but then more some of the areas that they talked about in the video, which you guys might not be aware of, and then some savings, as well as tying in at the end towards with Stephen in retirement, some options you guys would have to continue with the coverage provided by Pacific Blue Cross on your own in retirement or following termination. So firstly, has everyone here accessed the program previously before or been onto Pacific Blue Cross's mobile app or computer platform? Perfect. So then don't need to touch there, but essentially all the information on the plan is available by mobile phone or online. And there are also some great educational videos between it. Now, should you guys have spouses or dependents as part of the employment, they will also be covered under this program as well. So the benefits I touch on are not just provided to yourselves, they're provided to the extended family and dependents as long as they are under the age of 25 or they are attending full-time university following till they turn 26. No questions asked on that from Pacific Blue Cross until the age of 21. Firstly, from a financial savings standpoint, very important from a retirement side of things. But if, for example, when you're in your working years and you happen to be having to take high cost medication or your family members happen to take high cost medication, BC has implemented a fair pharmacare program where based on income, they will provide discounts on the cost of continued medication. There's been talks about this happening for some dental sides of things as well, but I doubt that's going to come out for a couple of years. But it's very easy to sign up for. There's a link online through the government of BC to sign up for Fair Pharmacare. The only caveat is you've had to pay taxes within Canada within the previous calendar year, as they will base the benefit amounts on your previous year's income. Now, within Pacific Blue Cross, this will be available through the mobile platform or online. They have a bunch of discounts on health and wellness products or services for some Pacific providers or even some gyms within the area. There's the ability to purchase additional personal insurance from a healthcare standpoint, whether they top up on critical illness coverage, which is a one-time lifetime benefit to yourselves or family member to receive cancer, heart attack, stroke, or 21 other major conditions within the policy. And there's also their preferred provider network. So potentially you've been to potentially a medical practitioner, massage therapist, acupuncture, and they haven't been able to bill the benefit card directly, and you may have had to pay out of pocket first. If you don't want to experience this ever, you can search for the provider network and see who actually takes the Pacific Blue Cross claim number. The majority of practitioners nowadays will. And also, if you happen to be out of the city of Vancouver or North Shore or somewhere traveling and you need to go see a pharmacist or you need to have something checked out from a back standpoint with a physiotherapist, within that town you're in, they will locate you to the closest proximity for someone to see those services. Continuing with the extended health side of things, there is a pharmacy compare tool online that this is continuing to access while working, which could compare the cost of prescriptions from different dispersing locations. So from different pharmacies, what the cost would be, and essentially help with the most least expensive area to go to if that's what you're looking for. Then one thing that's become extremely well taken up by those who are covered under Pacific Blue Cross is their health profile. So over the past couple of years, there's been a real uptake in stress, anxiety, or burnout from work. Pacific Blue Cross has a lot of free complimentary recommendations or treatments or videos that you guys could watch to help with keys to reducing anxiety, stress, or essentially just some place to talk about. It's a difficult subject to talk about or bring up. It's an online area where you can go connect with someone virtually and have a discussion with. As well as one that I've actually taken up with through a different provider is health and wellness goals. So if you want to track kind of from dieting and eating and exercise, there's great ways on there to help out with healthy eating, nutrition tips, as well as active lifestyle. And then, as I touched on previously, there's an instant claim area online where it could tell you what you're going to pay for or what's not going to be paid for based on the coverage. So say, for example, you're wondering, I have an interesting, let's say, I need to go get crutches. Is that going to be covered under the benefit program? Type it in, they'll let you know what's covered online previously to paying for that. Now, when you sign up for the program, you're going to receive an ID card. This is the key to using the program. If you haven't had a copy or taken a photo of it, keep it. It's the same ID for yourselves, your dependents and spouses. And that is the key to actually claiming within the program. Very important tool. Now, for the benefits to kick in or the co-insurances to kick in, there is firstly an upfront deductible. So that's cost of the procedure before the benefit coverage kicks in. There's $25 deductible per individuals, a $50 deductible for families. Following that, the co-insurance within the benefit program and the payment from Pacific Blue Cross kicks in. Now, within province and out of province, they're both 100% coverage for the general extended healthcare. Now, within that general extended healthcare, there is dental programs. Within the dental falls into two categories: what's considered basic dental and what's considered major dental. Basic dental covers majority of areas with the exception of bridges, crowns, dentures, and orthodontics. Those bridges, crowns, and dentures will then fall into the major dental service. The difference between them is with the major dental, there's a 50% co-insurance. So for example, if my teeth are going to cost $1,000 to get crowns, $500 of that would be covered by Pacific Blue Cross and the benefit program. $500 would be left to be paid for out of pocket. Same thing if I'm going to get my basic dental cleaning, and that was going to cost me $100, $80 would be covered by the benefit program and Pacific Blue Cross. $20 would be left to be paid for out of pocket. Within the program, there's also an amount of life insurance that you sign up for. The amount of that is up to $25,000 for automatically signing up. Now, part of that is you're entitled to 3 times the amount of salary. By just signing up for the benefit program, you will not automatically receive 3 times the amount of salary as for the life insurance benefit. In order to qualify for the full life insurance benefit for the program, you'll have to fill out what they consider their evidence of insurability. So it's a 21 question, short questionnaire to essentially see if there's any major indications or signs of cancer, heart attack, stroke, or any short major health concerns on the time horizon which has caused you to sign up. So generally I'd like to recommend that someone signs up for the program, or if you haven't already, to go online to apply to maximize life insurance benefit you guys would be entitled for, as if something was occur, be a great benefit for those you care about. Now, also within the program is your long-term disability benefits. So what the long-term disability benefits will provide is up to 66.67% of your pre-tax salary. Now, within this as well, there is a non-evidence maximum. So what the non-evidence maximum means is for automatically signing up for the program, if your income qualifies it, so that's 66.67% pre-tax, and it's $5,000, you'll receive $5,000. If you earn more, similar to the life insurance benefit, there's a medical evidence of insurability form, which I'd recommend you guys complete so that you could earn up to the $9,000 maximum available within the program, should your income qualify for it. Now, within the disability, there's a couple areas to look in for. One is what's called the elimination period or waiting period. Now, that's the amount of time you'd have to be physically unable to work or perform the day-to-day duties of your job before the long-term disability benefits kick in. So that's around 4 months. So when we talk about financial planning for retirement, also an important element that we often fair to ignore is our emergency fund. Now, generally, I would recommend to have 4 months worth of emergency savings or your monthly expenses saved up. The reason for that 4 months is following that 4 months, your long-term disability benefit will kick in should you be unable to work and continue. Now, that benefit will remain until the age of 65 or early retirement or returning to work. And this is one of the benefits that is only available for those in this room or who are actually working for Capilano, not dependents or children. So medication generally just has to be prescribed by a pharmacist, not over the counter Advil, not allergy medication. If there is something that's not over the counter that's medically prescribed to you, you can get a doctor's note to say you require that medication. For example, I need to take iron pills. It's a general pill that I could get from Safeway, for example, but because I have a doctor's note where I'm required to it, I'm eligible to claim it within my benefit program. Paramedical side of things, this is often one of the categories used the most within the programs, and what these are the list of services or providers which you can go utilize to help claim for treatments and services. These $500 amounts are per calendar year, and they are per each member of the family. So it's not for the family $500 in total, it's $500 each for each of the following providers. Now, there is one caveat with the massage practitioner. It's only $30 of coverage per appointment, and it could only be up to 10 visits per calendar year. Then within the program, there's also vision care or eye examinations, one every 24 months, but as well as there's a lifetime $200 to be used on LASIK eye surgery or any lens implants that could potentially be required in the future. Now, another benefit that I believe isn't always spoken about or isn't known about is second opinion service. Within Pacific Blue Cross, they sign up for essentially a board of doctors which provide those members that are covered under the program access to high-level doctors to provide a complimentary second opinion on any high-cost treatments, high-cost drugs, or even self-monitoring programs to help recover from condition. Now, they don't help with treatments. They would direct towards a different provider or a second opinion, should that be required. But I've heard very strong things about these for people who have recently been diagnosed with cancer and may want to have a second opinion on it, reaching out. And it's actually for Pacific Blue Cross through the Harvard Board of Medicine that I'd be reaching out to. So it's quite a nice service. And it also would help for counseling sessions if it's required. They could direct to 3 face-to-face counseling sessions within the area should it be required as well. Essentially, if there's something that happened, there are services available other than just your standard health, dental, vision care to reach out to provide those additional areas of service or assistance where it's required. And there's also an employee assistance program. So similar to how I mentioned earlier, the Pacific Blue Cross has the ability to provide guidelines on health and wellness and well-being. There's also an assistance program where you could reach out to anonymously, have someone to talk to. And these are kind of the top 14 reasons Pacific Blue Cross has listed that people reach out to for the employee assistance program. And on the next slide, I'm going to share the phone number, and it's through Maura Chappelle, and it's a way for just reach out to anonymously, and it's helping for just individuals to have someone to talk to. It's not something that is like to be spoken about, especially about males. But if anyone is struggling or anyone you know is struggling, it's a free service line to reach out to, completely anonymous. No one will know you called. No one will know you're having issues, but it is available there. And this has been the most common picked up benefit or increased usage in the last 2 years since COVID-19 has come in. Then emergency hospitalization. So if for an emergency situation, you need to require an ambulance, provide them the Pacific Blue Cross card. that's an assistance there. And they'll also have, you need to stay in a hospital, which I hope none of you guys actually have to. You get semi-private accommodation within there. And another benefit that isn't always spoken about, travel insurance. So if you happen to go traveling, you are covered for 60 consecutive days within a calendar year. That is not 60 days within the calendar year. It's if you go on a 2-month vacation and you're still going to be away on that 61st day, you will need to take an individual coverage on top of that. But I'm assuming I haven't heard of many 2 months vacations. Then with the retirement side of things, or if you decide to leave Capilano or terminate it, you have a conversion opportunity to convert the health coverage for yourselves, your dependents, or spouses to an individual program within 60 days of being terminated from employment. Now, what is really important about this conversion privilege is if you happen to be taking high-cost medications or any prescription drugs or have any medical conditions at all, generally when you go to an insurance provider, they will ask you a series of medical questions. If you happen to be on a specific medication or consistently taking drugs or have expected treatments moving forward, generally they are not going to want to insure you, or it's going to be quite expensive, or they could have what are called omissions, or areas where they will not cover for because of a pre-existing condition. So part of the benefit of being covered and this conversion privilege is it's no medical questions asked, sign up, pay the premium for yourself as an individual, and you will get to continue with the coverage you select. And that was a general overview on the health side of things for you guys. Questions on those topics or areas?
I have a question about the evidence of insurability form for LTD. Is that separate from the life one?
It's the same application,
Oh.
same application form.
Because we get the life ones and I've never seen a
Yeah.
one for LTD.
Yeah, that'll be the same one. There's a box to tick in there, but I'm assuming they'll have already looked at that correctly. People have filled that out. Questions? It's quiet faces now. I don't see any comments saying I look good on Zoom.
You're not going to get it.
Gotta give a few more years of these. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. And Stephen, anything else you'd like to add?
No, one last chance for any questions on anything?
Thank you so much.
Thanks for all your service to the club.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.